I'll call this meeting to order. Start off with the adoption of the agenda. Any questions or somebody like to make a motion? Councillor Schlossberger? All in favor? Carried. Regular minutes, February 24th meeting. Any questions, observations?
No. I will make a motion to accept the regular council minutes as February 24th as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have a delegation tonight. We'll start off with that. The MD. And who is speaking for the MD?
Everybody else took a step back.
They're just here to see what you do.
Evening, council. Thanks for meeting with your favorite neighbors. We're here. I've got our Reeve, our Deputy Reeve,
that.
our CAO, and Murray Frame of Frame Aviation. So you can guess that we're here to talk about the airport. Last summer, when I say we tonight, I'll be referring to the MD, we financed a recording device to see how many movements there are at the airport. So we've come up with, there was 619 movements last year between March and October inclusive. And that's a conservative number. Sometimes the recording device was down, there were snowy days, etc., kind of thing. So we feel it's an important part of the community. I think it's another box to check off if somebody is looking for a place to relocate to a small town. It's like having schools, hospitals, airport, motels, restaurants, etc. It's just another feather in your cap if you have this kind of facility available. The trouble with our runways are they're getting old, they haven't been maintained, and if you remember last fall, we approached town council about co-funding a grant, cap funding, it's a provincial grant, of the government pays 75% and you and I would split 25% of it. And your council decided not to engage in that proposition. So we decided not to apply for that grant either. So right now we're looking at not a Band-Aid, but maybe a 10-year solution to maintaining the airport, the runways and taxiways. We've gathered some numbers, some estimates on crack filling and a slurry coat on the runway and the taxiways and repainting the lines on the runways and hold lines, etc. There are special criteria to do that through Transport Canada, so we just can't go out with a paintbrush and do it. We have to hire somebody that knows what they're up to. Now, I just want to point out the town has benefited from our, when I say our, I say the MD again, that we have put water into the airport. We're working on a high pressure water system. So the properties you had out there are much more attractive now, and I think maybe you've sold a few of them due to the fact that we have financed that 100%. So just cutting to the chase, we're looking for a 50% a cost sharing of this process that I'm talking about. And the cost of the whole process would be about $70,000. So we'd be looking at 50% of that each, and that would extend the life of the infrastructure that we have in place already. We hate to lose it. If we continue to let it slide, the cracks are going to get bigger from freezing and thawing, etc. So we feel that's an important step that we can take right now and not spend too much money. There's the user group at the airport. There's a number of hangars out there, a number of individuals that are willing to work in kind too if we need, that we can cut our costs down with that. Murray's here as well. He may wish to speak later on the impact of his business that has on the community and that kind of thing. What else we got here? Guess that's, that about covers it, I think.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Is there any way to measure of the 619, say 700, if that's MD residents, you have no way of measuring?
No. The recording device was an audio recording, so the airplanes come and go.
Yeah.
We can't break it down by who's
Right,
sitting in the
right.
airplane.
There's not that many planes in the MD.
No, I think that, I know that was part of my reasoning for not voting yes when this proposition came up last year, was that our community members are, as far as I understand, not notorious as plane owners. So it's not a service that is used highly by the residents of Claresholm, which is who we represent.
Right.
So that's what's my curiosity.
I guess it's a community. As we know, community isn't defined by municipal boundaries, and we're certainly willing to work with the town on everything on our collaborative frameworks, et cetera. That's, and this does benefit the town in some ways, I think. If
I
I
guess
talk
with
Murray
just
into
so
speaking.
few budget dollars though, and we have so many roads that are in dire need of repair, I know that was personally where my motivation went to, is we need to repair the crappy roads that we have in this town.
Understand.
How many planes do you think there are in the MD?
Maybe
Like in
Murray
the
can
MD
answer
of
that
Willow
better
Creek?
for me.
Well, and actually I answered that entire line of thinking. There are only about 6 airplanes at the airport. There's probably another 6 airplanes within the MD, but our shop maintains 50 airplanes.
Well, yeah, but
From all
I'm
over the
just asking about local. I'm not
Right, your
asking
service
about your
level.
business, I'm asking about the local involvement. Well, any other questions, you guys?
Is there a number how many times Stars has used that airport?
They will be using it more. They didn't in the past because the helicopter they had was capable of landing at the hospital. But they're going to the bigger
The
helicopters.
bigger helicopter?
They
Actually,
cannot land at the
that's,
hospital.
Stars has changed directions, they're not going to go to the larger helicopters now because of that exact reason. And they're gonna just, they're actually getting rid of the larger ones they bought,
But
and they're
there is-
staying with the smaller ones now.
Oh,
There is
okay.
another thing to consider though. There is still a heavy amount of fixed wing patient transfers, I guess. They're not necessarily medevacs. Well, they can be. They use fixed wing airplanes to take people to University Hospital in Edmonton. They transfer patients that want to go home to their home hospital or to a specialist somewhere. So we do get a fair amount of fixed wing traffic that is not belonging to Stars. There's a contractor called Can West in Alberta that does that.
Yeah, it's a provincial air ambulance.
Yeah, right, but I was just more concerned
My own
with
wife
weather.
used that out of the airport here, but that is the main thing I think that uses it as far as outside factors.
Right. Yeah, I was just more worried about whether the helicopter was still able to land here or if they had to use.
No, they're down, they're having that trouble everywhere they go, that
Right.
big
The
helicopter
big
doesn't
one's
work,
just
so
too big for everybody.
they were abandoning that project.
Yeah.
I guess one more thing in the talk we have tonight is that if we could work out a deal, our council would consider taking over the runways and associated facilities. The lights, the NDB, the non-precision landing system, the terminal, the taxiways, that's a considerable liability for whoever has it. And I think we would possibly talk about that,
Take a look at
if we
that.
could work out a deal.
Well, I think that's something that we can definitely discuss. Is there any more questions? I mean, I'm glad you guys came forward and gave an exposure to the council of this. My next step would be, I will refer all of this and we'll have a JEDI meeting so we can discuss frankly back and forth about this. And I would ask that administration set one of those up as soon as possible. A JEDI meeting?
Can we get a motion for that?
Do you want a
please?
motion for that? Okay. Councilor Schlossberger.
My associates, have anything to add? Covered it? We good?
I think you're good.
Okay.
We all, what's that, can I hear that motion back, please?
Is that typed?
Haven't typed it yet.
I have another question, maybe with that grant, it was just last year, they're not, you said it's not, they're, cut that one?
No, it would be available again this year.
Oh, they didn't do away with it?
No.
There's so many done away with, I wasn't sure what was still available.
Well, I shouldn't say, when we met with the transportation minister in Edmonton
It's still
last
is.
fall, he said the funding was there in place for this year. Can't say how long it's gonna last.
Yeah.
But still, that's in, close to $800,000.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's a
And that
million.
was-
Someday that's gonna have to be done.
But 75% they cover.
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
and you probably get 40 years out of that, maybe 30, 40 years
30
as
years,
opposed to
probably,
10.
Yeah.
The existing runways were built during World War II and they've never been repaid.
Yeah, so they get good
70
longevity
years.
of it. Built in 45. Question?
Moved by Councillor Schlossberger to direct administration to schedule a joint economic development initiative meeting with the MD of Willow Creek at the earliest possible convenience to discuss the proposal regarding the Clarkson Industrial Airport.
All in favor? Carried. Well, Marion and Derek, if they can get their heads together and pick a date, I'm good tomorrow.
You're free tomorrow.
Thanks, Derek.
Thanks, Derek.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Nice guy.
Are you guys sticking around for a bit? Yep.
You guys leaving?
No, they're leaving.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Gotta go wash my hands now?
I was coughing.
You guys, thank you. Thanks, Gavin.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Keith.
Thanks for your time, bud.
Thanks, Chief.
Exercises today, so I feel like I'm going slow.
Was I rude to Murray?
Yeah.
Gotta cut it off 'cause he's really, he was
No, I know. We've let people from the gallery speak on a number, and we've let a number of people speak on
That's certain.
several occasions.
I did stop him. Okay, onward. Next on the agenda is bylaw 1694 intermunicipal collaboration framework bylaw. Marion.
Yes, so I'm just getting to my notes on that, sorry. Thank you, Councillor. So as council is aware, Part 17.2 of the Municipal Government Act required that all municipalities with a common boundary enter into an intermunicipal collaboration framework. That has to be in place by April 1st of 2020, and so in 2018 we began that process. It was determined at that time that rather than entering into individual ICFs for the MD of Willow Creek with the urban municipalities within their boundaries, that we would try to accomplish that in one ICF. And I'm proud to say that we are actually at that point, and it's taken a couple of years to get there, but tonight we're presenting that bylaw to you. So, as I said, we began discussions in 2014. The direction at that time was that the CAOs and senior management negotiate the body of the agreement and the intermunicipal collaboration framework with input from councils. So we met several times with all of the councils to make those presentations and discuss that. So the result of that is the bylaw that's presented tonight. The principles I just want to mention under what we agreed to collaborate are that we will collaborate with appropriateness, adaptability, accessibility, affordability, accountability, respectful, and reasonableness. So there's also some other principles within the agreement and the bylaw that says due to a variety of factors. Each municipality may or may not participate in those things that we have determined should be, would be best served under a intermunicipal service rather than that of a third party or individually by the municipality. And the agreement can be amended from time to time. Any municipality has the authority, the right to bring forward to the Intermunicipal Collaboration Committee their recommendations for changes. And it also does not circumvent two municipalities just negotiating with each other for any agreements. We would just make sure that those get incorporated into the ICF. So the ICF must be reviewed a minimum of once every 5 years by the ICF committee. The committee will consist of 10 members, that being 2 elected officials from each of the municipalities of the MD of Willow Creek, the town of Fort Macleod, town of Claresholm, town of Stavely, and town of Nanton. The CAOs from each of those municipalities will also participate, but they will serve as advisory staff to that committee. The location of the meetings will rotate between the municipalities, and the municipality that is hosting the meetings will be responsible for the agenda preparation, the coordination of the meetings, as well as the cost of hosting the meeting. This agreement does state that the ICF committee shall meet prior to June 1st of 2020 to begin further discussions regarding regional recreation services, and the MD of Willow Creek will host that first meeting. The agreement also includes a dispute resolution procedure, which first includes negotiation, then mediation, and then on to arbitration if required through those progressive steps. So with that sort of in a nutshell what's presented tonight, but we would be looking for council to give bylaw 1694, the Willow Creek Regional Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework bylaw, first reading.
Any questions?
The only thing I was thinking of in this might be, because it's got to be reviewed every oh, hang on here.
Once every 5.
Every 5. I just think you might get the way it works, you might get a council that might get it right on their very, very first interim year, or you might get a council that doesn't get to see it, whatever. Would it?
Well,
would it not
eventually
be
it
easier?
might work out to that, but
That's
Suck
that's
it up.
okay. That's
there's no way to avoid
Suck it
that.
up.
well. Yeah, if you did it on
Marion,
one council's.
got an answer for you.
Yeah, the legislation requires that it's a minimum once every 5 years. It's anticipated that this will be an annual review.
Oh, fair enough
No.
then.
And that
So
will be
do-
up to the committee to determine. That's sort of the discussions that we've had around the table, that
Oh, okay.
things shouldn't be left for 5 years before they're revisited. And
No.
a lot of those agreements will have to be reviewed every couple of 3 years anyways, so there
That's
should be a reason for that committee to meet more frequently than 5 years.
that's where I was thinking at, because we've all got the 4-year terms. If you did it on the council's 3rd term and then went every 4 years, you'd always hit the 3rd year of every council that way.
That's true. But,
But no, I'm fine. If it's gonna probably be reviewed for every year, that's fine.
okay, motion,
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Councillor Schultz. Question?
Moved by Councillor Schultz to give bylaw number 1694, the Willow Creek Regional Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework bylaw, first reading.
All in favor? Carried. Oh,
I should just maybe make one more comment on this, sorry. You'll see attached in the agreement, we have identified those services that are provided by the individual municipality, those provided jointly, and those
Yeah.
provided by a third party. The legislation changed this year to only require those that are provided in an intermunicipal agreement.
oh,
But we determined that we would leave all of that in the document because we'd already done the work
done the legwork, so.
up to that point. So that may be revised in the future, but I think it gives the councils a really good indication of what services are being provided and how those are best being provided at this point in time.
Thank you.
Number 2, bylaw 1695, consolidation of bylaws, first reading. Marion?
All right, so I will be presenting to council later on in the agenda the municipal accountability program review that took place here in December of 2019. And there's a few items here on the agenda, the next 3 bylaws actually, that are a result of that map review. So one of the things that was noted was that section 69 of the Municipal Government Act requires that a bylaw is needed to authorize, this is one wrong, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Authorize a designated officer to consolidate any of the bylaws in the town. So the land use bylaw would be an example of that. So there's a number of amendments that happen, and then we have Old Man River just consolidate that into one document, one bylaw, so that it's easily readable by the public. So the act requires that there actually be a bylaw in place to authorize myself to do that on behalf of council. So we're not changing any bylaws, we're just consolidating what is existing with their amendments. So I prepared bylaw 1695 for the consideration of council, which authorizes the CAO or designate to consolidate the bylaws of the town of Carson. And that's presented for first reading.
It just seems like redundancy, doesn't it?
Mhm.
But we don't make the rules, so. Any questions of Marion?
Who's the designate?
Marion?
CAO,
Or
CAO.
designate, it says.
whoever she did.
If I choose to designate
Oh,
Old
it's
Man
up to you.
River or somebody
Oh,
to
okay.
consolidate it on our behalf.
Okay, fair enough.
Somebody like to make a motion? Councilor Schlossberger? Question?
Moved by Councilor Schlossberg to give bylaw number 1695, the consolidation of bylaws bylaw, first reading.
That just sounds so odd. All in favor? Carried. Number 3, bylaw 1696, water and sewer bylaw amendment, first reading. Marion?
Okay, again, this is part of the map review, I'll call it. So it was noted that section 4.4 of the water and sewer utility bylaw is in contravention of section 191.2 of the Municipal Government Act, which states that the amendment or repeal of a bylaw must be made in the same way as the original bylaw. Bylaw 1659 required an amendment to remove the section which authorized amending the water usage fee established by bylaw through a council resolution. So it's just a technicality within the bylaw. So I prepared bylaw 1696, the water and sewer utility bylaw amendment, to remove the portion of section 4.4 which authorized the amendment of the water usage fee by council resolution. And then we removed the entire section and we added back in that any owner, the portion that states any owner who requires water for construction or other similar purposes will apply for water service by written application to the town for a development permit. Application for water will be accompanied by a service charge plus a fee in accordance with Schedule A attached here too. So we simply removed the portion that said council could by resolution alter the water usage fee.
When did you guys change from 25 cubic?
I'm sorry, we can't answer questions from the galley. Sorry.
Okay.
Anybody want to make a motion? Councilor Cutler? Question?
Moved by Councilor Cutler to give bylaw number 1696, the water and sewer bylaw amendment, first reading.
All in favor? Carried. Number 4, bylaw 1697. Marion?
Okay, again, another revision due to the map review. So council procedural bylaw 1647, again, was in contravention of section 191.2 of the MGA, which states that any repeal or amendment of a bylaw must be made in the same way as the original bylaw. so must be done by way of bylaw rather than by way of resolution. So, we needed to amend that bylaw to remove the section which authorized suspension of any provision of the bylaw through a special resolution of council. So, they also noted that section 5.1C and D were unclear in their intent in terms of whether or not the consent to change meeting times and locations was required by council resolution. It did state previously that it could be cancelled by or amended by consent of 2/3 of all members of council. So the only way you can have the consent of 2/3 is by way of a motion, which in other terminology is a resolution. So we did amend the bylaw to remove section 3.2 completely, which states that council can suspend any provision of the bylaw. And then we also removed section 5.1 and replaced it, just clarifying that it could be that time and date of a regular meeting and location may be changed by a resolution of council carried by 2/3 of all members of council. And also any scheduled regular meeting of council may be cancelled by resolution carried by 2/3 of all members of council. So that's there for first reading.
So with that, just for clarification for me there, by revising it, to get 2/3, we would have to make the motion in the meeting before, correct? Because you can't have a meeting,
Correct.
so it's,
Correct.
it's always talking a meeting before.
Mm-hmm. And if there was a required change, if you'd already had your regularly scheduled meeting and you required a change that was not known at that time, you would have to call a special meeting of council, because the only way you can pass a resolution is in a council meeting, in a public.
And to call a special meeting is either me or two councillors?
Sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head.
There's a certain number of councillors. I can't remember what it is either. Okay,
Just me.
motions. Mr. Schlossberger. Question?
Moved by Councillor Schlossberger to get bylaw number 1697, the procedural bylaw amendment, first reading.
All in favor? Carried. Number 5, correspondence. The Honorable K.C. Madhu, Minister of Municipal Affairs. The budget for 2020. Marion, you want to say anything about this?
Just an update from the minister on their budget announcement for 2020. There's no change to the MSI initiative funding that was announced back in budget 2019 in October. So we're still going to see those reductions moving forward that were anticipated back then. The local government fiscal framework begins in 2022 and 2023. That's intended to replace the MSI funding and will be tied to provincial revenues or a portion of provincial revenues. They are still determining how that funding will be allocated, and they state that they'll be working with AUMA and RMA to come to some kind of consensus on that. But they want it to be the right balance of flexibility, autonomy, and accountability. As was anticipated, the grants in place of taxes payments were reduced by an additional 25%. So that's now down to 50% of the amount that was paid in 18 and 19. They've eliminated the fire training grants to municipalities, and we have used that in the past in conjunction with the MD of Willow Creek. And so I believe that Kelly Starling from the MD has actually been pursuing an alternative grant to help fund those training costs. And also Budget 2020 proposes that the AFRAX, so the Alberta Fire Responder Radio Communications system be I think it's first responder, I don't think it should say fire, sorry.
Oh, it's first
Alberta
responder.
First Respond, yeah. Will be transferred to the Alberta Emergency Management Agency from Service Alberta, so that we could see a change in how that's communicated, but basically that's all their letter states.
Okay, we'll take it for information. Number 6, correspondence, the Alberta Urbanist, AUMA preliminary budget report. We'll just take that for information.
Yeah, no surprises from what we anticipated. Yeah.
Just as bleak as we anticipated.
The one thing I should point out that I don't think we anticipated though is that, while I heard about it just before the budget was announced, but there's a requirement now by the provincial government that we must obtain provincial approval
Oh,
before
yes.
we enter into any agreements with the federal government. So that changes a little bit of potentially something that we might be doing with the federal government under grants or those kind of things. So
Well, the gas tax is federal,
yeah, but that already runs through the province. Yeah,
so we don't have to worry about accounting for that to the
yeah,
province.
it's already through.
It's
the
already through
province.
that, so the only thing would be any federal grants we applied for.
Yeah, or, I mean, there might be other circumstances that arise, but I just wanted to bring that to council's attention.
Okay, we'll take that for information. Number 7, sorry, correspondence, Alberta Municipal Affairs, the map review. Marion,
All right, so this is gonna take me a minute to go through, but one of the requirements is that the map review be presented to council in a public meeting, so I'll try and get through it as quickly as possible here. So I received the results of our review in late February, and so I've taken a little bit of time to review that prior to presenting it to council. I did prepare, there's a requirement we had to provide a response with a plan to address any of the outstanding items within 8 weeks of receiving the letter. And then we have a timeline for completion not to exceed 1 year. So I have already provided my plan to the province, and we only have a couple of outstanding items left once we have second and third reading of these bylaws that we're presenting to you tonight. So I'll just go through the report very quickly with you. There's a number of things. First of all, the municipal office. The question was, has council named a place as its municipal office? And the answer was yes, and there's no action required. Orientation training, so was council oriented as per the regulations, with certain topics being covered, and the answer was yes to that, and there was no action required. Does council provide a CAO annual written performance? And the answer was yes, with no action required. Provision of information. So the question was, when information regarding the operation or administration of the municipality is requested by a councillor, how does the CAO provide information to all council as soon as practicable? So the answer to that was the CAO is aware of the MGA requirements. When the CAO receives an inquiry from a council member, a response is emailed to all members of council. In addition, council was provided with agenda packages in advance of the December 9th, 2019 council meeting. The CAO provided a written report to council that was supplemented with additional verbal updates. The CAO provided procedural guidance throughout the council meeting. So we meet the legislative requirements and no actions required. The next was with regards to signing of municipal documents. So are the minutes of council meetings signed by the person presiding and a designated officer? Are the bylaws of the municipality signed appropriately, and are agreements, checks, and other negotiable instruments signed appropriately? The answer to all of that was yes, and there's no action required on that. The next was with regards to repair of roads, public places, and public works. Each municipality must ensure that every road or other public place that is subject to the direction, control, and management of the municipality, including all public works in, on, or above the roads or public place, must put there by the municipality or by another person with the permission of the municipality are kept in a reasonable state of repair by the municipality, having regard to the character of the road, public place or public work, and the area of the municipality in which it is located. Their comments is the CAO is aware of the responsibilities under section 532 of the MGA and share that the town has policies and plans in place which are reflected in the annual budget. Any municipal policies and practices discussed were not reviewed. In the event the policies and practices establish specific service levels, it may be appropriate to review the service levels and seek the necessary advice to ensure that the service levels are appropriate and being followed. They commented that we meet the legislative requirements and there's no required follow-up. Public presence at meetings. Our council and council committees held in public. Meetings of council, including our regular meetings, are held in public, and as indicated in section 10.1 of bylaw 1647, which was just amended, and it indicates that the public are in attendance unless the meeting is closed as per the provisions of the MGA. So we met those requirements, no action required. Closed meetings. Before closing all or part of a meeting to the public, is a resolution passed to indicate that it will be closed? Do council meeting minutes indicate and record the names of those who attended the closed meetings? So, and the question, sorry, is does a resolution identify what exception to disclosure under the FOIP Act applies to that part of the meeting being closed? So their comments and observations were: the council meeting minutes reviewed for January 28th, 2019 and February 11th, 2019, and the procedure to move into a closed session that was observed at the December 9th, 2019 meeting did not meet the legislative requirements. The resolution to proceed with a closed session did not include the applicable exception to the disclosure under FOIP. The minutes indicate the relevant section and the general nature of the item to be discussed. However, the resolution did not include the exception to disclosure as it was required under the MG. So their recommended action was moving forward. The council resolution to proceed with a closed session must include the relevant FOIP exception as required by the MGA. So if you recall, our minutes used to reflect this is what our in-camera items are, and then the resolution just said go in camera. So direction has been given to minute taking that the portion that was above will now actually be included in the resolution, and you would have seen that reflected in the last minutes that you had in front of you. So I have responded that my plan is for the the action to be taken is that change was implemented in February of 2020. The organizational meeting must be held annually, and the meeting was held October 28th, 2019 in accordance with the MGA. The dates of the meetings were done. Also, the appointment for the deputy chief elected official was put in place at that time. We do meet the legislative requirements and there's no action required. Special meetings. Has a special council meeting been held, and was there proper notification given according to the Act? The comments were that the last special council meeting was held June 18th, 2018, and proper notification was provided to the public. The special meeting was not held within 24 hours, and no changes were made to the agenda. So we meet the legislative requirements, and there's no action required. Meetings through electronic communications, section 199 of the MGA. Council does not currently use electronic communications for meetings, so we do meet the legislative requirements and nothing's required. Regular meeting change notice. So council meeting dates are set annually at the organizational meeting, and the dates, times, and locations of meeting have rarely been changed. No recent examples were located, so we meet those requirements as well. authority to act. So our resolutions or bylaws passed in an open public meeting. The comment was that it was noted at the December 9th, 2019 meeting that direction was occasionally provided without a resolution. So the indication was tonight, when direction was given to set the JEDI meeting, that requires a resolution, not just direction. So council cannot provide direction except by way of resolution. So my response, we did not meet the legislative requirements, so my response, again, in the plan was that that change was implemented in February 2020, and the minutes will reflect that moving forward. The next was, with regards to quorum, is a majority of council president meetings to exercise their authority according to the Act. We meet those requirements as well. Voting, does each councillor participate in voting? Is abstention from voting recorded in the minutes, and is a request for recorded vote done prior to the vote being taken? And again, we met those requirements and nothing's required. The next was with regards to pecuniary interest. So when a pecuniary interest is declared, as per section 172 of the MGA, is that noted in the minutes, and is the nature of that pecuniary interest disclosed. So it was noted that a member of council on February 11th, 2019 declared a pecuniary interest regarding item 10, while the minutes indicate that the member declared a pecuniary interest, left the council chambers, and did not return until the matter was concluded, which is the correct procedure. The minutes did not include the general nature of the pecuniary interest. So their recommendation is, moving forward, when a member of council declares a pecuniary interest, the member must state, and the minutes must record, the general nature of the pecuniary interest provided by the council member. So if you feel you have a pecuniary interest, you must state why you have that, and it must be recorded. So my response is, I've discussed this with council now, presented it to you, and staff, and that we will implement the procedure and recording of minutes appropriately immediately. So anytime there would be a pecuniary interest. Council meeting minutes, are they recorded appropriately as per the Act? And we did meet those requirements, and there's no action required. Code of conduct, section 146(1) of the MGA requires that council have a code of conduct for elected officials. The town passed that code of conduct bylaw on April 9th of 2018, and the legislative requirements are met. Establishment of the chief administrative officer position. MGA section 205 requires that there be a bylaw establishing that position, and that there be a council resolution to appoint the current CEO. Again, those legislative requirements were met. Designated officers, do we have a designated officer bylaw? And are there specific designated officers for the position of municipal assessor, assessment review board clerk, and subdivision and development appeal board clerk? We did meet those legislative requirements, and there's no action required. With regards to borrowing bylaws, did we meet the requirements under section MGA 251 to 259 and the debt limit regulation of 255/2000? They reviewed 2 short-term borrowing bylaws, and they did meet the legislative requirement, and there is no action required. The property tax bylaw, is there a bylaw in place with matters relating to assessment subclasses regulation 2002-2017? Is there a tax bylaw passed? Does it maintain the maximum 5-to-1 tax ratio between residential and non-residential? Are the requisitions accounted for? Are the calculations correct? etc. So we do pass a tax bylaw annually and again, meet those legislative requirements, no action required. Next was a matter with Assessment Review Board, section 454 to 456. There is a bylaw in place and an Assessment Review Board in place, and it is a regional through Old Man River Regional Services Commission with numerous municipalities. So the council, the comments and observations were that the town bylaw states that the clerk is appointed by the Old Man River Regional Services Commission director, and that's contrary to the MGA, which states where an assessment review board is jointly established, the councils must jointly appoint the clerk. And then the town bylaw states that the clerk appoints the chairperson, and this is contrary again. The council must jointly designate one of the board members as chair. So the recommendation is that assessment review board bylaw must be amended or repealed and provide for those changes to the bylaw. Now, that's not something that we can just do arbitrarily because it is a regional board. So I have been in contact with the manager of ORS, and they are in the process of reviewing and amending the bylaw, and they will send the bylaw out to all of the member municipalities that participate so that we all have the same bylaw in place, and those changes will be done. So that was my response to municipal affairs. Bylaw enforcement officers, MGA section 555 to 556 requires that there be a municipal bylaw enforcement officer bylaw. We have been using the peace officer program through the SolGen, and we have a number of regulations and agreements under that. But their recommendation was that a bylaw must be passed that establishes the powers of the bylaw enforcement officer, even though we have a peace officer. So that bylaw is being prepared and will be presented to council at the next council meeting. And that is my response to the province on that as well. Now, this is discretionary bylaws, and this was in front of you tonight. I won't go into detail, but that was the procedural bylaw changes that were required, so technicalities within those bylaws. And as you're aware, that's already in progress. Fire protection and emergency services bylaws, so they looked at both fire protection and bylaws, and those do meet legislative requirements, and there's no action required. Water and sewer utility bylaw, again, that was presented to you tonight, so I won't go into that as well. And then the bylaw procedures, and this is oh, no, sorry. So this is a different one, sorry, passing of bylaws. So this is, there's a number of resolutions of council that require unanimous consent. And the way the minutes reflected was that the motion read to give unanimous consent to bylaw 1668, the mill rate bylaw. And the motion is then shown as being carried. Their position is that that is contrary to the Municipal Government Act, and that the motion needs to say unanimous, not just carried. So we've revised the way we will be recording minutes for the future, and instead of saying give unanimous consent, we'll just say give consent to give bylaw, and then we'll show unanimous rather.
Same thing, just different spin on words.
Okay, the next under bylaws was the revisions and amendments, and that's the consolidation of bylaw that I presented tonight as well. Mandatory policies, public participation policy is required under section 216.1 and regulation 193/2017. The town passed the public participation policy in July of 2019. And we meet the legislative requirements, and there's no action required. Then on to finance, the operating budget, has there been an operating budget adopted, and does it include estimated amounts for the appropriate things? And the comments were that the interim 2019 operating budget was adopted December 10th, 2018 council meeting. The final 2019 operating budget was adopted in May of 2019. The budget met the requirements review and it aligns with the property tax rate bylaws, so we met the legislative requirements. The capital budget, has a capital budget for each calendar year been adopted, and does it include estimates for the appropriate expenses, and again, met those legislative requirements, no action required. Financial records and receipts, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just going on. This is a long report.
It's like being in college again, huh?
Yeah. Section 268(1) of the financial records and receipts are accurate records and accounts kept of the financial affairs, and are the actual revenues and expenditures compared with estimates reported to council, and are revenues of the municipality collected and controlled, and receipts issued in the manner directed by council. We met those legislative requirements, and there's no action required. Municipal accounts is all money being belonging to or held by the municipality deposited into a financial institution designated by council, and we met those legislative requirements, no action required. Fidelity bond, the town, this has to do with our fidelity bond or equivalent insurance under section 212.1 of the Act. The comments were the town has insurance through MSC Insurance. Based on information provided, insurance was in place, so we meet those requirements. Auditor audited financial statements in the auditor report, so that's section 276, 280, and 281. Have we appointed the auditor? Do they do annual financial statements? Do they include the debt limit and the amount of the municipality's debt? Are the financial statements available to the public, and has council received the auditor's report on the annual financial statements and financial information return? Again, we met those requirements, and there's no action required. Salary and benefits, section 217 requires that the salaries of councilors, CAO, and all designated officers be reflected on the annual financial statements, and we meet those requirements, no action required. Also, section 281 requires that a management letter be prepared by the auditor and submitted to council on an annual basis, and the town has received those confidential recommendations from the auditor, and there's no action required. Section 283(1) requires a 3-year operating plan and a 5-year capital plan. That doesn't have to be in place until this year, but because we already had it in place in 2019, we meet those legislative requirements, and there's no action required. This assessment and taxation, so the assessment role, basically there's a number of things under section 284.2 that are required for the assessment role to be completed. Also that it be available for inspection, and that we have a bylaw to establish any fee for inspection. We meet all of those legislative requirements, no actions required there. The tax roll, so has an annual tax roll been prepared for the municipality, and does it include the appropriate items as required under the Act? We meet those requirements, and there's no action required. Assessment and tax notices, do we provide a combined property assessment and tax notice? And do we meet, are those sent to the appropriate assessed person? Are they prepared annually, and are they sent to the taxpayers? We do provide a combined assessment and tax notice, and we meet all of those legislative requirements, no action required. The content of the assessment notices, do we meet the requirements under section 303, 308.1, and 309 of the assessment notices? The town does provide combined assessment and tax notices, which include all the required elements, and so there's no action required. Then on the content of the tax notice itself, does the municipality, does the municipal property tax notice show the following? And there's a number of items that need to be reflected on the tax notice. One of the in their comments, they said all of the required elements above are included. However, they did notice that we had a requisition for a paper fee, so that was implemented a year and a half ago, something like that. They basically have said that this amount must be part of the municipal levy, and we can't list it separately on the tax notice. So we do need to amend that, so I just have discussed that with staff, and the paper fee will be included in that general municipal levy, and so that will be implemented on the 2020 tax notices. Also with tax notices, there's a requirement that there be a certification of the notices being sent out in the appropriate time, and that certification was provided, and the tax notices for 2019 were mailed on time. So we met the requirements, no action required. Tax arrears list, have the arrears list been prepared? Has it been sent to the registrar and the minister as required? Has the list been posted in a place that is accessible to the public, and were the persons notified who are liable to pay that tax? We met all of those legislative requirements, and no action. Tax sales, so have those properties appearing on a tax arrears list been offered for sale within the time frame provided? The last tax sale for the town was held August 21st, 2018. Council did set the reserve bid, and the date and the conditions of the sale were advertised in accordance with the Act, so we met those legislative requirements. Under planning, the subdivision authority has the municipality provided a bylaw for the subdivision authority. We have met those legislative requirements, and that's included in bylaw. I can't remember the number here. 1530, sorry. Development authority has a municipality by bylaw provided for a development authority, and again, yes, we have met those requirements, and there's no action required. The Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, have we met the legislative requirements for the establishment and the procedures within a Subdivision and Development Appeal Board? Again, this is an area where we are outside of the legislation, and I believe that's, coming up later on the agenda. What happened is, under the SDAB, you can only have one councillor assigned as per the Municipal Government Act. We did do the one assignment when that legislation changed, but for some reason during the organizational meeting in October, the list didn't get updated, and we ended up appointing more than one councillor to that board at the organizational meeting. So we just need a resolution to appoint only one member of council by resolution, so that's coming up later on the agenda. Okay, subdivision applications and decisions. Have we met the requirements in the notice and referrals and have there been any appeals? Did the SDB clerk give 5 days notice of the hearing, etc.? We did meet all of those requirements, and there's no action required. Development applications, so did the Development Authority review the application within 20 days? So that's new legislative requirements. And if deemed complete or deemed refused, did it meet all of the requirements? So their comments were That development application D 2019-045 was reviewed, the application dated March 16th, 2019. The notice of decision was issued on May 27th, 2019. No documentation was provided indicating that the application was deemed complete or incomplete within the 20 days as required, nor was written notification provided to the applicant stating that the application was deemed complete or incomplete. So there was action required on that. I did some investigation into that, and actually, even though application D 2019-45 states that the application date was March 16th, 2019, this individual had an old form in their possession back in March. There is a stamp on the document that says it was received on May 27th, and then it also states that the decision was May 27th. So we meet the legislative requirements, and after that legislation was changed, we also updated our application forms so that there is a date in there that says date deemed accepted or refused. So I've just responded, and we've already met those legislative requirements. The Alberta Land Stewardship Act Regional Plan, we needed to provide a statutory declaration with the Land Use Secretariat indicating that we are compliant with the regional plan. And we did provide that on July 18th, 2019, and there's no action required. Growth Management Board was the next. We are not a part of a Growth Management Board, so it doesn't apply. The Land Use Bylaw, so there's a number of things under the Land Use Bylaw. Is there a bylaw in place? Does the land use divide the municipality into districts? Does a public notice of application to rezone property include certain things? Does a notice of a public hearing on land use bylaw related issues include a number of things? We do meet the legislative requirements, and there's no action required on the land use bylaw. Okay. Municipal development plan. Is there a municipal development plan, and does it address the appropriate items? And was there a public hearing held? We meet all of those legislative requirements, and there's no action required. Intermunicipal development plan, that is new legislation that is coming into effect. That was required to be in place by April 1st of 2020. In late 2019, the government changed that legislation. But as council's aware, we're in the middle of those negotiations, and we anticipate that we will have that in place probably not by April 1st, simply because negotiations have taken a little longer, but that is in progress, so I've reported that back to the government. Intermunicipal collaboration frameworks, again, this is part of the new legislation, and those are required to be in place by April 1st, 2020, and council gave first reading to that tonight, so we anticipate that will be done. Listing and publishing policies related to planning decisions. So again, with the changes to the Municipal Government Act, there was a requirement that those plans and policies be published on a municipal website. We meet those legislative requirements, and there's no action required. Then we go on to the Local Authorities Election Act. So joint elections, is there an agreement to hold an election in conjunction with another local authority? And does it include specific things? So we did enter into an agreement with the Livingston Range School Division for the 2017 elections. We meet all of those requirements, and there's no action required. Did the returning officer and all deputy returning officers take an oath or statement as per the Local Authorities Election Act? We met those requirements. Again, no action. Did council appoint a substitute returning officer, which was not required in 2017 election, but was required when we had our by-election in 2019? We met those requirements, and we're good there. Nomination forms, is there a bylaw requiring a deposit on nomination forms? Were they signed by at least 5 electors? Were they all filed prior to the most recent election? Have they all been, retained? Those filed, have they been retained? Were copies of identification of official agents, etc.? Do we ensure that the deputy minister is forward a signed statement showing the name of each nominated candidate, election results, and any information about that candidate that the candidate has consented to be disclosed? We met those requirements again. Ballot account, has a copy of the ballot account been retained? Yes, we meet those requirements. Disposition of election materials, did we dispose of the election materials as per the Local Authorities Election Act, Section 101? Yes, we met those requirements. Campaign disclosure statements, again, part of the new Local Authorities Election Act. 3 candidates from 2017 filed campaign disclosure statements, and the statements included all of the required items. So we meet the legislative requirements. Emergency management, has an emergency advisory committee been appointed consisting of a member of council to advise on the development? Is an emergency management agency established? Has a director of emergency management been appointed? And are there prepared and approved emergency plans and programs? We meet all of those legislative requirements, and there's no action required. Municipal Emergency Organization Agency Advisory Committee. So is the municipality aware of the training requirements that have come with the new with the new Municipal Government Act for the Director of Emergency Management, as well as deputies and the staff associated? So the comment was that the town is aware of the legislative changes indicated, and we've indicated that the training has already been provided to the appropriate members, and no action. So we meet the legislative requirements, and there's no action required. The last was, 2, Municipal Library Board. Is there a bylaw in place to establish all the appropriate things? But one of the questions was a copy of the bylaw establishing the board provided to the minister, and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, Library Services could not find a copy of our bylaws, so I have sent them a copy of the bylaws, so we're now compliant. The System Library Board, basically, do we have a library system board established? So we are part of the Chinook Arch Regional Library System, and we meet the legislative requirements, and no actions required. And that's it.
Tight ship over there, Miss Marion. Well done.
So we do have 2 items that are still outstanding, and that's the bylaw officer bylaw, which will be coming to council in March, and then the Oldman River on our regional board that will wait to get their new bylaw.
Okay.
Thank you. Girl gets stuff done, eh?
Everybody need a coffee?
No, I was just. The front's a little cloudy. Would you mind going over that again?
Sure. You bet.
No. Okay, number
I'll
8.
hit 'em.
Correspondence, South Grow Regional Initiative. An invitation for the South Grow Economic Summit.
It's a good lineup. Looks really fun.
Brad, you want to say anything about this?
Brady's RSVP'd. Anybody else who wants to go? We're in Edmonton them 2 days. Anybody else wants to go? Peter extended a welcome to anybody else who wants
If
to go.
there's a Tesla to drive there.
Huh?
There's
Just
a Tesla
Tesla
there to
driving?
drive.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take that for information. Number 9, Rowan House Fundraising Gala. This is the yearly event. It's in High River, I believe. May 8th.
Oh.
Yes.
Sorry, can I just back us up a little bit? Can we get a motion to accept the map review as presented?
You didn't follow procedure there, did you? Councillor Carlson. I even had a note to do that, and I forgot.
We all get to an age.
Yeah, me too.
You got it wrote out?
Yep.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Carlson to accept the Municipal Accountability Program Review, map review, as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Where was I? Number 9, Rowan House Fundraising Gala. I think we'll just take that for information. Number 10, correspondence, Claresholm Community Center Association fundraising dinner and concert. This is for their renovations, correct?
It's a great
Yes.
idea.
Brad, you sit on that board.
Yes. It's a fundraiser that, as a board, we came up with. Roast beef dinner, concert, bar,
Fun.
fun night. I have tickets. Whoever wants them.
I've got mine.
April 18th, 2020.
I'm not in the country, sorry.
No reason not to buy a ticket.
Okay, I'll buy a ticket. That's a very good point.
Valid point.
Okay, we're just taking this for information. Number 11, request for decision, Chinook Intermunicipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board. Marion, this is what you were talking about.
Yes, this is, as I noted in the map review, that there was an oversight at the organizational meeting in October, and we ended up appointing 3 council members to the Subdivision Development Appeal Board. We do have Councillor Moore and Member-at-Large Darcy Erickson, who have both taken the training, and our recommendation is that they be appointed.
Sounds logical.
Sure does.
Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion to appoint those 2 to the.
Councillor Zimmer. Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to appoint Darcy Erickson and Councillor Gavin Moore to the Chinook Intermunicipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board.
All in favor? Carried.
We're just gonna add to that motion Darcy Erickson as a member-at-large, just so it's clear.
Oh, okay.
Do we have to redo that now?
I'm just wondering, should we restate?
Yeah, just restate.
Okay.
So I'll make a
Can we hear
motion
the
to adopt, to appoint Darcy Erickson as member at large and Councillor Gavin Moore to the Chinook Intermunicipal Subdivision Development Appeal Board.
Actually, you should be making a motion to amend your motion.
That's okay, we'll just.
You'll do the paperwork? Okay. Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to appoint Darcy Erickson as a member-at-large and Councillor Gavin Moore to the Chinook Intermunicipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board.
All in favor? Carried. Number 12, request for decision, letter of support, Co-op Community Spaces Grant. All right.
At the February 24th meeting, council did pass a motion to send a letter of support for the Art Society for the co-op grant at the community center. There was a misunderstanding as who was actually applying for the grant, and it's the community center board, the community hall board. So we require a motion to rescind motion 20-031 and put the motion forward to write the letter of support for the Claresholm Community Center. Now, because that was already, the deadline was coming up, we did provide the appropriate letter of support, but we do require the council resolution to be
paperwork.
amended.
Okay, a motion to rescind. Councillor Cutler? Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to rescind motion number 20-031.
All in favor? Carried. And a motion for a letter of support. Councilor Schlossberger? Question?
Moved by Councilor Schlossberger to write a letter of support towards the Claresholm Community Center Association's application to the Co-op Community Spaces Grant for the purpose of renovating and upgrading the entryway and washroom facilities at the Claresholm Community Center.
All in favor? Carried. Number 13, request for decision, Community Foundation Grant Partnership. All right.
Okay, so the Claresholm has been awarded the 2021 Southern Alberta Summer Games, and the Summer Games Committee met on the 25th, and they're starting to plan some of their fundraising activities. And that would be to improve some of the athletic facilities within the community. So the committee would like to apply for to the Community Foundation of Lethbridge in Southwest Alberta to have the lines completed on the newly paved Willow Creek Composite High School track. In order to qualify for the program, the organization must be a CRA registered charity or be in partnership with a municipality or school. The Summer Games Committee is registered in Alberta but is not a registered charity. So they're seeking the town's support as a partner for their application to the Community Foundation of Lethbridge and Southwestern Alberta for the Community Priorities Grant. The application deadline is March 16th, and the grant program is not a matching fund program, but any additional funds that may be required would not be expected from the town. The Summer Games Committee would be doing other fundraising to cover those costs.
I'll make that motion.
Can you make that motion? Councilor Schultz? Question?
Moved by Councilor Schultz to partner with the Claresholm Southern Alberta Summer Games Society in support of their application to the Community Foundation of Lethbridge in Southwestern Alberta for the purpose of painting lines on the track located at Willow Creek Composite High School.
All in favor? Carried. Number 14, request for decision, signage over the public property. Marion?
Okay, so there's been an application from the Range Bud Supply to put basically the addition of 3 flags at their location at 4817 First Street. They want to increase their visibility from traffic traveling north and south along the highway. The flags would hang out on an angle over the sidewalk, and the Town of Claresholm Land Use Bylaw states that the approval of signage overhanging public land under the sign schedule is conditional upon the owners and or occupiers of the premises upon which the sign is located providing to the Town of Claresholm a written waiver of liability is authorized by council or an indemnification agreement for any injury or damage resulting from said sign. So they have requested council approve the placement of the flags, and they are prepared to provide all of the waivers as required.
Okay.
Just one more thing, just for information purposes as well. No part of the sign shall project more than 5 feet over the public sidewalk, and it's required to be 9 feet above the ground or the sidewalk.
Would you like to make a motion?
So can they not use those other signs that all the other town people have to bolt to the side of their building?
Well, that's an elected, you don't have to be a part of that signage potential. That incentive with the steel signs,
Right.
the cutout signs,
That was
yeah,
part
those
of
aren't
the chamber
mandatory.
council.
Right.
It's through the chamber.
And it's costly.
And it was also, that was pulled into our land use bylaw, was it not?
I believe so.
I believe it was. This is over and above that.
So what they're looking for is for the flags to be more visible on the highway, so they're projecting out.
Right.
Rather than a fence building. So they're just looking for more advertising.
They project further
But-
also than those little signs do.
Right, but it's not, like we discussed those little signs before, so the people driving by can look down that scene and see what's down that road, right? So that not everybody's throwing,
Well, no, it was just, it
So that it's
wasn't a
more uniform, else all
requirement,
those
it was
other-
just a suggestion.
Don't think they're allowed to put a marijuana plant on that sign. I don't know what the flags have on them, but
Like says they
It
have
can
marijuana
say
on them.
cannabis.
Two flags that say
Can I-
cannabis.
It can't say
Cannabis. But still,
they're
that,
not gonna get that on the sign.
that was a Chamber of Commerce initiative, those signs. These guys do not.
EDC.
It was, oh, it was EDC. It's not a requirement that they sign on to that.
No,
They
but
can
it's-
Go their own direction.
But it's to create a look in our town, right? That was sort of the point of the
Yeah.
implementation, is so
Yes.
that we had sort of an aesthetic throughout the community. No, I understand what you're saying.
I think their point is that that signage from a car
For them.
driving down the highway doesn't
That's
have
right.
the visibility that they'd require for.
Yeah.
Is anybody willing to make a motion?
Thank
Councillor Schlossberger. Question?
Moved by Councillor Schlossberger to approve the location over the public sidewalk for the flag signage at 4817 First Street West on the condition of a waiver of liability for the town of Cardsmouth.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 4-3. Number 15, information brief, letter support, co-op community spaces grant. Marion,
The Child Care Society supports the Co-op Community Spaces Grant Program for the new playground at their new location. The deadline was March 2nd, and so administration provided the letter of support for them. And as per policy, we're just bringing that to council's attention this evening.
needs to share information only. Number 15, information brief. Number 16, information brief council resolutions, that's information. Adoption of information items. Number 17. Somebody like to move to adopt the information item?
I can make that motion.
Councilor Moore? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Motion to go in camera. Councilor Moore was first. All in favor? Carried. Okay, take a 5-minute break, so a couple of people can turn the camera off. Well, as soon as we get off.
No.
Okay. We need a motion to put Margaret Lane on the
Come out of
museum
here.
board.
Camera.
Come out of in camera. Councillor Cutler, all in favor of coming out of in camera? Opposed?
I'm late. It's all good.
Carried. Okay, we have, somebody would like to go on the museum board. Would anybody be interested in that?
I can make that motion,
Yeah.
appoint Margaret Lane to the museum board.
All in favor? Carried. That was the only one we needed out of the motion to adjourn. Can you turn the camera off, please? We are
Who
adjourned.
made the motion?
You made the motion?
Councillor Carlson.